with a panel that will be on 12 October. The program tonight is about religious tolerance in Thailand. Thailand, generally speaking, is probably a country with a rather good level of religious tolerance. It doesn't have the same level of religious tensions as, for instance, in Malaysia or in a country like Burma. And even if we speak about the insurgency in southern Thailand, we often, the analysts would qualify the insurgency as an ethno-cultural or an ethno-nationalist insurgency, meaning that the religious factors are secondary. But more recently, there has been increasing tensions among specifically the Buddhist community and the Muslim community in Thailand. There has been tension around a Buddhist park planned in Pattani, and also tension about a Halal food industrial zone in Chiang Mai. So to speak about this issue tonight, we have two persons who have been very active on this issue. Angkhana Neelapaijit. Angkhana, her name has become well known in Thailand under tragic circumstances. Her husband, Somchai Neelapaijit, a lawyer, was disappeared in 2004 after witnesses saw policemen pushed him onto a car. She created in 2006 the Justice and Peace Foundation, an organization with the objective of helping victims of human rights violations. And since the beginning of the year, she's one of the 7 members of the National Human Rights Commissions. The second speaker is Dr. Gothom Arya. Dr. Gothom is an academic. He has been one of the members of the first election commission, the commission which was created after the 1997 constitution. He has been also the chairman of the National Economic and Social Council between 2001 and 2008. And he is now an independent academic working on human rights and peace studies. He also has been actively involved in the interfaith dialogue in Thailand. Please, if the panelists can join, and we will start with Angkhana.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Kun Arnold, for letting me to have a chance to speak with you on the religious tolerance. As a multicultural country, the majority of Thailand's population are Buddhist. Through the certain regions, including the southern border provinces, most people there are ethnically Malay Muslim. In addition, in many marginalized communities, the members are composed of indigenous people whose culture, tradition, and religious belief are different from the majority time. Around 1947, during the administration led by Field Marshal Black Pibun Songkram, nationalistic values were reinforced to impose Thai nationalism. By regulations, the Muslims in southern border provinces were obligated to have Thai dresses and their traditional sarong, and Muslim style hats were banned. They were also required to adopt Thai names, speak Thai, among others. All these have caused this frustration among the Malay Muslim people in southern border provinces. All these have cooperated with later assimilation policy of the state to relocate some Buddhist people from the northeast to the south, giving them land to till there, It has even deepened their enforcement and feeling of injustice, as well as their right to observe their religion. The resumption of violence in southern border provinces since 2004 and the number of Thai Buddhist monks has been spreaded the fear and hatred toward the Muslim. It has prompted some Buddhist Thai to rise up demanding the installations of Buddhism as the national religion. During the drafting of the Constitution in 1997 and 2007, even during the drafting of the current Constitution, some Buddhist Thais and monks have called for the promulgation of Buddhism as the national religion. The previous Thai constitutions have provided for freedom of religion and the practice of all religious beliefs, in compliance with Article 18 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which provides that everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. The right shall include freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of his or her choice. Apart from being a multicultural nation, Thailand is a transit country for migrants, refugees, or asylum seekers from various countries. Many of them have fled from religious persecutions in their own countries, including the Muslim Ahmadiyya or Christian in Pakistan, the Rohingya from Rakhine State in Myanmar. They have been driven out of their land and country as a result of religious conflicts. Since religion is rooted in conscience, which is universal among all religions, such conscience should be treated as a belief and thereby protected by international human rights law. Therefore, a person who adopts a belief based on their conscience, which may stand contrary to other prevailing beliefs, should therefore be accorded with the respect of their conscience. National Human Rights Commission of Thailand received a complaint from a man who was to be drafted into the military below. According to his conscience, serving in the military is involved with the use of violence, arms, and lethal forces, the acts of which are extremely against his conscience. He felt so discontented and guilty having to be drafted as a military man. National Human Rights Commission have made a suggestion to the concerned agencies that such belief should be respected. The belief based on one's conscience is protected by human rights law, and therefore he should have been reassigned to any duties not directly related to the use of firearms. There have also complaints from Muslim women and girls about the right to wearing hijab or a veil in school, university, or in workplace. Such religious intolerance has prompted a group of Thai Buddhists in Chiang Mai to come out to express their strong rejection of Halal products and Halal industry, thinking that the Muslims in Thailand are going to dominate the rice consumption based on religious belief. In the Northeast, there has been opposition to the construction of a mosque. There has also been opposition to the promulgation of the Hajj Promotion Act. Meanwhile, Muslims in southern border provinces have come out against the construction of Buddha Monthon or Buddhist park in Pattani. Of late, there was a murder against a Thai Buddhist in Tepa district, Songkhla province, and the perpetrators left a note with the statement that since the Thai authorities have arrested innocent people, we would kill all Thai Buddhists. Section 67 of the Constitution, which had just been endorsed in the past referendum, does not just provide for the protection of Buddhism, it even reiterates the promotion of education and teaching of the Theravada school of Buddhism. This will affect Buddhist monks in other sects and Buddhist nuns or bhikkhuni in Thailand who shall not be accorded with such protection. Since the bhikkhuni in Thailand have to seek ordination from abroad and thereby are treated as belonging to the Mahayana school of Buddhism. Section 67, the Constitution Drafting Committee has opted to recognize the status of Buddhism as a religion adopted by the majority of Thai people for a long time, instead of the recognition that Buddhism is the national religion, as proposed by a group of Buddhists. It should be noted that even though Section 67 does not establish Buddhism as a national religion, in order to avoid causing the feeling, alienation, or conflicts among people in Thailand who adopt different beliefs, it still obligates the Thai state to promote the teaching of Theravada school of Buddhism and to come up with measures to prevent the dismantling of Buddhism. The section does not, however, provide for protection and promotions of the teaching or other religions or other schools of Buddhism. In other words, the draft constitution fails to provide for equal protection of people belonging to different beliefs. In comparison, the previous constitution, both in 1997 and 2007, provide the directive principle of fundamental state policies that states shall patronize and protect all religions equally without specifying the protection or promotion of the teaching of any particular religions or religion sect. In addition, the two constitutions provides that the state shall promote reconciliation among religions as well as whilst the current draft constitution has left this issue out. It has not been that clear whether the Section 67 was the core reason that prompted the majority of both in southern border provinces to come out too strongly against the draft constitution or not. But by observing general discussion there, one can feel the lack of trust among the local people toward the law of the state to protect the rights of freedom of religions and religious practice. Such predicament may have limitification on the peacemaking process initiated by the state, since without trust and cooperation from the people, it would be difficult to establish peace in southern border provinces. In terms of civil rights, according to international standards, the state is obligated to protect the rights of all people living in the national territory, with no discrimination based on race, language, sex, religions, political will, ethnicity, birth, origin, or economic standing. Practically, the state is obligated to ensure that such equality exists in the law and society. Even though it has been touted that Thailand is a multicultural society, but the understanding and acceptance of ethnic and racial diversity among the general Thai population still leaves much to be deserted. Therefore, resistance to cultural alien of those of the majority of the people is a constant occurrence. In many instances, such misunderstanding might escalate into a bigotry or hatred. The ethnic bigotry can unknowingly lead to the human rights violation, and it might give rise to a larger discrimination based on race, social exclusion, deepening hatred, and encouraging the institution of policies discrimination to the indigenous people. It has given rise a lot of suffering by various ethnic people in Thailand, from the opposition to the construction of a mosque in the northeast, to the opposition of the construction of Puttamonthon in southern border provinces, or the forced eviction and arson of shelter of the ethnic currents in Bangkok village, Jangkrachan. The case of which ruled by the Central Administrative Court last week as fine, and the official has acted lawfully to burn the shelter to the ground. The court approves the act of the authorities without considering that every plank of wood, benches, utensils, mattress, pillars, and all shabby clothes of the current villagers in Bangkok village may look worthless by the authorities, but they all carry stories and mean so much spiritually to the people who own them, and they are irreplaceable by money. So all the incidents inflicted on the ethnic people in Thailand, the Muslim in southern border provinces, or the indigenous people in the marginalized communities, should serve as a challenge to all Thais. They might have to think that perhaps it might be true that Thailand is genuinely tolerant to people of all religions and ethnicity. I thank you.
Thank you, Kun Angkhana. Please, Dr. Gothom, if you can make your presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for coming despite the rain. Hope we shall enjoy few minutes together now. My knowledge about religion is limited. I consider myself as an agnostic. So I try to prepare myself. Just select one book, Globalizing God, Religion, Spirituality and Peace by Johan Galtung and Grimmy McQueen. After reading the book, I was completely lost. So let me start with some concrete examples of the lack of tolerance. Why not with the situation in the south of Thailand? The insurgent say that this land should be called Darul Harabi. I don't know my Arabic pronunciation is good or not. It means that It's the land where Muslims are persecuted in a certain way. That's why they want to make the land a Darul Salam, the land of peace, or in a way, an Islamic state or whatever. So this kind of thing is being used. I give you an example, a concrete example. A year ago, I think, 16 insurgents were killed. And immediately, they were buried. Normally, they have to go through a bath rite, you see, going to a certain bathing of the body. But in this case, no need, because they are considered like, I think the word is Jahid. You go directly to heaven, am I correct?
Yes.
Like martyr in English, maybe. So they believe that they are fighting in the name of
God.
religion. A second piece of information that struck me, 12 years ago, there was a very sad incident. People were killed in the Crusade Mosque. And the authority found a booklet describing 7 steps to win over the land. And I was struck by one passage. And you see, written with a lot of citation of the Quran. Somebody asked the Prophet, or not, maybe not the Quran, but the Hadith. Somebody asked the Prophet, if our property is stolen, what should we do? The Prophet said, you have to defend yourself. You have to reclaim what belongs to you. But if the other side start attacking you, or even going to kill you, then you have to defend yourself, the answer was. And what would happen if they were killed? Answer was clear. They were on the wrong side, they will go to hell. But in this fight, if we defending our property and we are killed, the answer is no need to worry, you will go to heaven. This was written. And this, when I asked the insurgent, are you a separatist? Obviously the answer is no. We are not separatists. We do not want to separate the land. We only want to reclaim the land that used to belong to us. That explains exactly the passage of the book I told you that was found 12 years ago in the Crusade Mosque. And what is the answer of the Thai? Buddhist Thai. They say, oh, what they are telling is an old story. And the Thai raised the stake. Before the land became Muslim, became Islamic land, or occupied by people who believe in Islam. The religion was Hinduism and even Buddhism. So you cannot claim the land on the religious belief of the inhabitants. The land could be claimed by Hindu, because long time ago Hinduism were practiced, and so on and so forth. So there are many, arguments over religious matter in the south of Thailand. Give you another concrete case. Turkey. I think there are 3 parties the secular army and more mainstream Sunni, and let's say Sufis Sunni. And the latter is being led, so to speak, by Fethullah Gulen, who took refuge in United States during the past 15 years. So with that failed coup, the government of Turkey has now a great opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. To reduce the strength of the secular army, of course, they are now in a difficult position, and also to get rid of Gulen's group. They declare that school, university, television station, radio station, hospital, you see, and you name it, run by those who have the same ideas as Gulen, has to be shut down. Example is that there are 4 schools in Thailand from Gulen's movement. So the Turkish embassy here sent a letter, or I don't know, a statement, saying that those schools belong to terrorists. We don't recognize them. Their certificate will not be valid in Turkey, and so on. They are guilty by association. What these 4 schools in Thailand did to help the failed coup in Turkey, I fail to see any connection. But you see, here again, I see it as an infighting between Muslims with maybe the aim of promoting less secular and more religious state in Turkey. I don't want to bother you for so long, but just give you one thinking of mine. And this is a very sad story, a tragedy. This is happening in Syria. What's going on there? Basically, Shiite Muslims and Sunni Muslims are killing each other with the support of many of your countries. Very sad. It is going on. The truth we had put some hope in just failed. And I think here is all the cases, I can continue with Iraq, with Israel, and so on and so forth, of religious intolerance. I'm supposed to talk about religious tolerance, do I? Those are symptoms of the conflict, illness of our global society. And we see attempts here and there, not just to use violence, direct violence, but the efforts to set up what I would call legal structure that would favor one religious group over another. A clear example is that so far, each time we have a drafting committee of a new constitution, and you know how many committees did we have. Majority of Buddhists here would be campaigning to put in the constitution the stipulation that Buddhism should be our national religion. The argument is simple. We are 90% Buddhist. Why don't we say that this is a Buddhist country? However, we stood our ground so far. Then, in the new constitution to be, they put a strange phrase. Theravada Buddhism will be given a prominent status. That is worrisome for non-Theravada Buddhist. And then the constitution said that the state will protect and support Buddhism, etc., etc., and other religions. Okay, fine statement. But the rest it will be about set up mechanism to protect, if I read correctly, Theravada Buddhism, with the participation of the Thai. This should be a very bad connotation, legal structure that would say we shall set up mechanism to protect one particular sect of Buddhism. And this is one of the main reasons why in the 3 provinces in the south, the draft constitution was rejected, except in 5 districts. And in those 5 districts, if you look at the population proportion, those 5 districts have a large number of Buddhists as compared of other districts in the provinces. But the NCPO is clever enough. Why? Immediately they issue the order number 49, using the power, the dictatorial power under Article 44 of the interim constitution to rectify this. So now we have the order number 49 that say, in fact, that you should not be worried, the state will protect and promote and support Theravada Buddhism, as well as Mahayana Buddhism. They don't speak about Vajrayana, which is Tibetan Buddhism. They will protect and support other religions, namely Islam, Christianity, or Christianity, Hinduism, and Sikh. I'm a little worried about that, because you all know that there are more than 5 religions in this world. But the Thai state or Thai officials only recognize 5 religions. And these religions will be protect and support, for instance. So some efforts has been made to put this intolerance somehow into a legal structure. But to me, the most basic problems is in the mind of the people, in the culture, in the belief of the people. And I will give you 2 or 3, if I still have time, Arno. Okay. Ideas of mine. When we talk about religion, you ask a Buddhist say, our religion is most peaceful, most tolerant. The same will go for Muslim, the same may go for Christian, and so on. I read another book about the widespread misunderstanding about religions. And the statement was in that book, that we cannot say that a Buddhist or Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Sikh are particularly peaceful as compared to people of different religions. At some time, they are very violent. You can tell the stories of religious war and so on and so forth, the killing by Buddhists against Buddhists or against Hindu or whatever. They have a lot of violence, sometimes in the name of religions. So I would like to say that this is a sad mindset that we always think that we are better, although no historical proof for this statement. Moreover, they believe that the teaching of one's own religion is for peace. But in fact, not exactly. You can find in the teaching of some religions, maybe with the exception of Chinese in India, which is supposed to be very, very peaceful. Nevertheless, people belonging to these religions also participate in war, you see. So the teaching, again, is not clear that one teaching is better or worse than another. I have a little idea here, because I read this book, that it all depends on what you consider your own scripture as a closed text or still an open text. Why the return of fundamentalism? Because people start reading the scripture more and find out that, well, our local tradition doesn't fit literally to some of the phrase being written in one passage, in one scripture. So that tradition has to be changed. Take, for instance, the wearing of the hijab. 20 years ago in the South, you find very few people wearing hijab. And then people return from the Middle East, from Islamic school here and there, and they say, look, we should interpret the writing of the scripture, in this case the Quran, this way. And if you are not wearing hijab, you are no more Muslim. I went to Turkey, point in case, very few. And even strange enough, you are forbidden to wear hijab in school. Then I asked my friends in the South. Their conclusion is clear. Turkish people are not Muslim. And this is because some consider the scripture to be a closed text. Nothing can change. My friends in the South repeated to me, not one singular full stop or comma could be changed from the Quran. I said, why? It was written. It was written 200 years maybe after the pass away of the Prophet, has it not? They say, no. They don't believe. They believe that directly from the mouth of the Prophet came the full text. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but whatever the case, I think the scripture is and can be opened or reopened, as the case of Mahayana sect that reopened the Tripitaka of the Buddhist Theravada. One thing strike me when I read the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Sometimes his wife, he consults his wife, and his wife says something, and he corrects himself with respect to other disciples. Say, okay, situation is this and that, so you have to behave one way or the other. And also he was advised by friends and others, and he changed what he said in accordance to the context or the situation. But his words has frozen, not directly his written words, but his words as remembered by some disciples and has been frozen, not as the first scripture, but as hadith, if I understood. So maybe one problem of intolerance is the closeness of the scriptures. Another one is that religion all claim to be universal. valid for everyone. But in fact, it is not. Or in fact, it is. But it is in contradiction with the ideology such as nationalism, which is very local, area-based. And ethnicity, there is a contradiction here between the claim of universality and the reality of human society, which is still very much divided according to other dimension of affinity or other identities. So, if religions claim too much space as to be the only one identity, the most important identity, then you should disregard maybe nationalism, and maybe you will have ISO, which is idea of Khalifa that should be all over the world, unite all the Muslims together, because this should overrun all the sentiment of tradition, nationality, and so on and so forth. But in fact, it is not the case. A human person is so complex. We have so many identities. At one time, you are Muslim, and you fight the government of India to have East Pakistan as an independent state. Another time, you fight to keep Bengali as your national language and to be separate from another Muslim state, which was the West Pakistan. You see, a person can change under certain circumstances. So we should not give religions to be the most universal ideas and think of it as a single identity of yours. A third point I would like to make is that the idea about the worldview. The worldview is how we view others. Are we having a dualistic worldview, us and them? Or we have a more, what shall I say, cosmopolitan idea? Or we can have an enlarged moral community? Or we can exercise our moral imagination to include even others who are so different from us, but they belong to the same circle of concern as much as possible. And this should apply, say, to the migrant workers. People say, we should help migrant workers. Good. As long as they behave like a Thai. Wow. How can we do that? We happy, very much, very happy. Happy is the Thai word for happy. We are very happy with our Thai citizens in the South. We can talk together, we can agree on everything, as long as they are Thai. So there is some idea of exclusivity here. You are us. It's based on nationalism. If you consider or you have the same nationalist idea as the majority of the Thai people. I just received some complaint from a US immigrant person. I went to the Malaysian National Day this lunch time. And he said to me, how come my Thai friends nowadays always criticize me daily, on a daily basis? US is being criticized by the Thai. I say, because you don't support our beloved General Pravitt or Prayut, I don't know. Otherwise, we will love you as before. You see, always the idea of putting someone outside your moral community on basis of their support of one idea or another, and in some case on the basis of the belonging to one or another religion. Okay, I think I abused your time a lot, then I shall conclude. Where is my conclusion? Oh, it's too long. Okay, so we should use dialogue, intra-dialogue, intra-religious dialogue, as well as inter-religious dialogue. I emphasize on intra-religious dialogue even more. Second point, we should encourage religious scholars to study these specific issues of tolerance and try to avoid, you see, misunderstanding about this word and look at it as close as possible to what is our reality. We should be careful not to create legal infrastructure or legal system that will discriminate others on the basis of religion, and that would enshrine, if possible, religious freedom and tolerance. We should learn from Gulen about tolerance in Islam, because he wrote some book on that issue. We should learn from Hindu teaching as exemplified by Gandhi himself. We should learn from Martin Luther King Jr. as he used Christianity to talk about tolerance. Maybe also Mother Teresa. And why not a little bit from one particular leader I would like to quote, whose name is Putatasa. He just passed away. He said something like this. First, deepen the understanding of your own religion. In this case, if you are Buddhist, you should know your religion well. Secondly, learn from other religions. Open your mind. You go in depth, you go widely. Look around. And then join hands to fight our common enemy, which is consumerism, which is maybe contrary to what is written here as spirituality. That word may be a common denomination of those who would like to use religions as a vehicle for tolerance. And that immediately reminds me of a poet whose name is Rumi. I suppose you may have heard about him, from the Sufi tradition. Somebody told me that in one of his poems, he wrote, put one feet firmly on the land of Islam, and another foot on 7 oceans. I let you to interpret what Ruby said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gotham. The floor is now open. Please state your name and your affiliation.
Yes.
Well, we can hear you anyway, so I think you can ask the question.
I'm Doug Sanders from Angkhana University. Hello. I think it is fairly clear that what the drafters of the Constitution attempted to do was to respond to the demands, the Buddhist demands, for the recognition of Buddhism as a national religion. This point has been made very clear by the panel, that this has been one of the recurring demands. I remember in major demonstrations in which the monks overturned their bowls as an affront to the political leadership of the country. This was denying them the ability to make merit by making donations to the Sangha. So this has been very difficult. And Thailand faces a problem that is faced by a number of countries. Indonesia very clearly, in which, like Thailand, you have a very overwhelming majority identified with one particular religion. And we see in Indonesia and in Malaysia and in Thailand attempts to have a secular constitution, but in each of them tremendous political demands for some engagement or management of religion. In Indonesia, this is often called consociationalism after Dutch patterns, but it really means the state becomes engaged with religion in an attempt to manage. And we see this with the obligation in the draft constitution to my glasses, excuse me, to patronize and protect. This is not a Western separation of church and state. This is a positive obligation on the part of the state to play a management role. And the Thai government for decades and decades and decades has been involved. It structures the Sangha. We've had this controversy about the Supreme Patriarch. I think we don't have one at this point, because it has to go through the so-called secular government and the approval of the Buddhist king to complete the process. So autonomy for the various religious groupings is really not part of the structure, because the government has to manage. If the government has to manage, then there has to be representatives. And before Prayut announced his Section 44 special committee about 10 days ago, which is supposed to tell us how to protect the various religions, he met with representatives of the various religions. This is a pattern we see institutionalized much more clearly, I think, in Indonesia than here. But there is, in fact, a sort of official representative of Islam as far as the government is concerned in these kinds of processes. And Prayut was able to say, yes, that there had been agreement of the various people on the Section 44, Order 49, 49 to set up a committee. And this was because they got the compromise wrong. Maybe if they had just said promote and protect and didn't add the next paragraph, which goes into some detail in relation to how you promote and protect Buddhism. And there isn't a paragraph on how you promote and protect Islam, or how you promote and protect Hinduism or Christianity. So there's an unequal treatment here. So how do you structure these representative bodies or representative spokespeople so that the government can manage intercommunal religious relations? Well, this, of course, we all know has been the big dilemma in relation to the southern insurgency. Who do you talk to? Is there an organized grouping on the other side which can control the insurgency? It appears, and have an agenda, have demands, so that you can engage. It has been proven impossible to engage.
So the question is how
Yes.
do you
How?
structure?
Yes.
Did you get the
I'm
the
sorry, I'm a
question?
law professor, so you know.
So what is the question?
We talk. I'm saying that there are two basic problems which we have not been able to address. One of which is the representativeness on the other side. We're not very good on the representativeness on the Buddhist side either, because Thailand sort of blew it this time around, and so you know, this is not working, and we've had two attempts to get it to work. That is the constitutional wording, and now 10 days ago the order 49. The second thing is, if you get representatives, you are assuming that there is some internal coherence on the part of the grouping. We know, in fact, that there are very large non-Orthodox Buddhist groupings in Thailand, which are almost never referred to, at least in the English language newspapers. It's as if there is a Theravada Buddhism that everybody understands. But we know that they're very large, unorthodox groupings, very powerful. So there isn't a single side on the Buddhist side. And I know less about the Muslim side as to whether there's a potential of a single side there. But what the state becomes involved in is assessing and regulating the orthodoxy of the groupings, as if they are coherent and unified,
So
and they are not.
So the question is the structure of each religion, and are they cohesive? Is there a cohesiveness in each religion, from what I understand? Minutes.
He's going to ask another question?
Uh,
Yes, please.
Do you wish to answer the first question? It's around the issue of the relationship between the states and religions.
I'm so sorry. I did not understand fully your question. Are you talking more about the South? And when you talk about representativeness of the two sides who are in a so-called peace talk, is that your concern, the first one? And you talk about internal incoherence. That these are the two basic problems. Are you talking also in the context of the south of Thailand, or in the context of Thailand as a whole?
So basically in terms of the South.
In total south. And then you are quite right.
I'm relieved.
But I would add that You see, normally, you did not send the number one to the negotiating table. The Bara Pattani do have some representativeness of BRN, but not the top leaders of BRN. And General Aksara, head of the Thai delegation, each time he has to ask for some instruction of General Prayut, his friend. That is normal in negotiation. So I think it's a problem of representativeness on both sides, but that's no reason to stop the process. And internal incoherence, we can speak for an hour. So let's agree that it's difficult to achieve. And again, we have to live with it. I'm not sure whether I can fully understand or answer your question, but this is my first comment. Thank you.
I would like to reply for something. I think that for the situation in the south, one thing is I think that firstly, Thailand not accepted that situation in South Thailand is the conflict or armed conflict area, because the Thai state think that it's only the unless situation, so that you know that they have a lot of international mechanism. If you accept that the situation in the south is the conflict zone, so that you can use the humanitarian law, you can you have rights to protect like the school or hospital or whatever. But when do not accept that this is a conflict, it's only internal problem of Thai people. So that I think that maybe the Thai state, they maybe they close one eye, so that they not want to know about the history of the Malay Muslim in the south. They not want to accept that they are the Malay nationality. But when you know that when we say that we are Thai, but actually we are not Thais, because we are multicultural. So I think firstly, if Thailand accepted that we are multicultural country, we have to learn from each other. From my experience, you know that since last 20 years in the south, in the school, you can see the children, both Buddhist and Malay Muslim, they study in the same school. But for nowadays, they already separated. The Muslim children, they are going to the Pondok school or the Islamic private school. And in the state school, they have only the Buddhist children. So they have no Buddhist friend or no Malay friends. So you know that now the new generation, they are growing up in the situation like this. So I think that if we want to solve this problem, firstly we have to accept that we are multicultural society. When we talk about the constitution, they have no representative from the ethnic people. They have no Muslim representative to be the drafting committee. They have no representative from other ethnic people. So they cannot, they are exclusive since the beginning, since the biggest law, the constitution, that when they not, they cannot be included on the drafting constitution. So they cannot, that they cannot say what they want. And one thing about the Article 67, that when it's not only the religions, but it also mean about the education. When we talk about the South, that people prefer to send their children to go to the Islamic private school. But when in some article about education, it said that they have the education must be comply with the standard education. So that in the South, sometimes they study about only Malay. That not comply with the standard education. So that it caused a lot of frustration among the Malay Muslim people and the government.
Thank you, Angkhana. Please.
My name is Jeffrey Goddard. I'm a retired journalist. I'm interested in this topic tonight because I think we need a more inclusive world.
So you can you speak more loudly because we can't hear you.
The PA system works properly. Hello, can you use that better?
No.
Is that better? It's not working.
It's good. I think you just have to get close.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Okay. My name's Jeffrey Goddard. I'm a retired journalist, and I'm particularly interested in this topic because I think we need a more inclusive world for it to be a better place. I've spent most of the last 15 years in Myanmar, and before that I've lived in Thailand for a total of about 10 years. So I'm going to give you my perspective of religious tolerance in Thailand, and you might not agree with it. But this is my experience. I have never heard my Thai friends, my educated Thai friends, disparage Muslims in any way. I have never heard uneducated Thai, excuse my judgment, I have never heard Thais who might not have had the opportunity of an advanced education disparage Muslims, as I have in Yangon, where I've had taxi drivers telling me that a Muslim cannot be a Myanmar. We've had the situation we have in the Thai armed forces. There is no discrimination against Muslims apparently, because the coup in 2006 was led by a Muslim general. So I'm wondering, and my experience is that there was not the poison in some elements of the Sangha that appears to be emerging now. So and one more thing, two more things. If you're a Muslim and you're leaving Thailand and you're at the airport, there's a prayer room for you. There's no prayer room in Yangon airport. And the other issue is, a couple of years ago I was very impressed on Thai television to see a public service announcement before the Hajj, which was urging all Muslims planning to do the Hajj to get a complete medical check before they do it, because it's a very strenuous activity. And this message, this public service message, ended with, the Thai government cares for the welfare of all Thai Muslims during the Hajj. I look forward to the day when there's a message like that on Myanmar TV. So my question is, if there is less tolerance now, what is driving it?
if there is less tolerance now, what is driving it? Why is there less tolerance in Thailand now?
You see, there is both what you may call Islamophobia, because for some of the Thai, who follow international news, the coverage is rather bad and usually put Muslim on, what shall I say, on the wrong footing, as sometimes you see create trouble here and there. Also, the problem in the south is another aggravating factor, because, as I said, we are glad to accept you